All right, people, it's showtime.
Hi, this is Caitlin Bassett, and you are listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap Aftershow. I'm Albie, and as always with me is Hayden.
The naughtiest of all nurses.
And joining us once again is our panelist from the Quantum Leap Podcast proper, the showrunner, the author of the best Quantum Leap novel that ever existed, Foreknowledge, Christopher DeFilippis. How you doing, Chris?
I am well, thank you very much. I'm wearing scrubs, so
Doctor.
I feel very official. Doctor.
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 Doctor. Okay.
Doctor.
Today we are talking about the episode Paging Dr. Song. It's the 10th episode in season 1 of the new version of Quantum Leap. It's the medical drama episode, I think. Hayden, could you read us a little description about what the episode's about and the people involved?
Okay, Paging Dr. Song was written by Benjamin Raab and Derek A. Hughes. A short plot summary. Ben leaps into a medical resident in a Seattle hospital as victims from a train crash pour into the ER. Addison reveals Ben's complicated mission. He must go up against hospital bosses to save lives and Alexandra's career. Meanwhile, in 2023, Janice has been captured by the Project Quantum Leap crew and agrees that she'll reveal everything that she's able to.
Which isn't much.
No. Well, you could see that coming a mile off.
I mean, that feels just like a lie.
Yeah, it really does. Hayden, what's your first impressions of Paging Dr. Song? What do you think of this one?
Oh, it's a good episode. I think this is the most Quantum Leapy episode that we've had, actually. It's the one that really feels most like what we came to expect for Quantum Leap. They did lean into some wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff, which I appreciate as well. Lots of moral and ethical questions come into play. Stuff always for us to think about and talk about. So, yeah, good episode, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
All right, Chris.
This episode was a mixed bag for me. I thought that the acting and the performances were exemplary, and everybody did a great job with what they were given. That being said, I'm not a fan of medical dramas, and this was cliched medical drama all the way down. It checked all of the boxes. So I was of two minds with this one. I'm glad I watched it twice, because the first time I was just ready to panic because all I could see was the cliches. And then when I saw it again, all I could see was the amazing performances that everybody gave across the board.
Mm-hmm. I think that's good in a way that they were doing all the medical cliches, the doctor shows, the hospital shows, because maybe to attract new viewers that might see a preview for it coming up, and people that do like the medical dramas might go, oh, I'll check it out, and then maybe they'll stick around for the rest of the series. I was thinking that might be one of the reasons they did it. I know Dean had mentioned that they wanted to do it kind of like ER style. I'm more of a Grey's Anatomy person. I watched many seasons of that. And so going into this episode, I really thought that in Grey's Anatomy, one of the three always dies. So I was like waiting for one of the three to die. And especially when Sandra told Ben, you can't save everyone. I think that for the first viewing, I thought maybe that meant one of the people will die. So I wasn't sure who. And I had my suspicions that it was the guy with the shrapnel in his head, because he looked like he was saved at first. So maybe later, but nobody ended up dying. So the second watching, when I heard that, I was like, well, maybe he can't save everyone. Maybe that's like leading into the bigger mystery of maybe he can't save Addison or whatever he's trying to do.
That's what I was thinking as well. It felt like this was a lesson that Ben would have to learn. Probably something that Sam really should have tried to learn throughout his leaping tenure as well. Yeah, because they're exactly right. You can't save everybody. And, it would be detrimental to try. Save who you can, but don't, put yourself in any extra danger.
I didn't see this as indicative of a bigger lesson that Ben needed to learn, because in the end, he did save everybody. And to me, that is quintessential Quantum Leap. I'm really glad that it all worked out in the end, because I don't want to see a Quantum Leap in which Ben has to fail because gritty drama. I want to see Quantum Leap maintaining its optimistic point of view. And that doesn't mean that every leap has a happy ending. I mean, this reminded me so much of Promised Land, where Al said, almost off the cuff in the street at the end, when they realized that the brother was going to be, I guess, gunned down in an armed robbery or something like that. And Sam said, why did I leap here to save him if he's just going to die in like 5 years? And Al said, you can't save everybody. And that was the only time, really, I think, that they alluded to that on the show directly in the classic series. So I don't want to see that happen more and more here, because I feel like the inclination of modern TV is to give you that Hobson's choice. And Quantum Leap doesn't need that.
Well, I disagree with you a little bit there, Chris, because if he was there to save everybody, he would have prevented the train disaster. He wouldn't have been in the hospital trying to save everyone that he could.
I'm talking in the context of the leap, in the context of the story that we are presented with, and the choices that Ben is given.
That is
you can
question.
say that with any leap, really. Yeah,
that is a good question. Why wasn't he? Why didn't he leap to the train to try to stop that? Or that would have been a replay of that movie that was based on Quantum Leap. What was that movie?
Source Code.
Source
Code. Yes. So that would have been a Source Code episode, which they should do at some point, which would be great. But yeah. So maybe, it was rough for me, this episode. I really loved it. My first viewing, I was all teary eyed, and the emotion got me. The when the music swells up and people are crying, and I was really crying along with everything and everybody. I was really sucked into it. On repeated viewings, though, I didn't really get that feeling. But it's not meant to be watched over and over again. So I don't think that's a downfall of the episode. And maybe if it's spread out amongst rewatches, I might again get more emotionally involved on repeated watches. But the first time, it hit me all in the right spots at the right time, I think. And that has a lot to do with I think the acting and the music. The music really led me to where I was supposed to be, I think, emotionally. So I really enjoyed the score in this episode, and the needle drops. They were nice.
Do you think that Ziggy should have had better records of everything that went on during the leap? First of all, wouldn't Ziggy have known the times that the people were going to be admitted into the hospital, so that Ben/Alexandra doesn't look like some sort of psychic and or have some other motive going on? Ziggy should have been able to say, all right, you're here to save these people, but they're not here yet, so don't say anything yet. Or, I know that they needed these sort of psychic bits so that they would believe him a little bit later on in the episode. But it surprises me that, something that simple wouldn't have actually come up. Another thing too, when he's there trying to keep the guy with the shrapnel in his head calm, and he's stressing out because he doesn't know what's happened to his wife, why couldn't Addison say, oh, it looks like she's died, you'll just have to try and comfort him as much as you can, but don't tell him yet, or something like that? It just seemed that Ziggy wasn't getting the information as quickly as she should have been, and not letting the right information out.
I think that in the moment they were trying to save, that the character's name was Louis Tan, and in the moment they were trying to save Louis's life, so they weren't going anywhere beyond that. And the fact that I found it a little bit dubious that we could just save him by having Ben speak to him. But I guess in the end, that does make a difference, because it changes the entire dynamic of the situation. So it is different than it was. So to me, that's okay. I can accept that. The fact that Ben is keeping him focused, and he didn't move his head that micrometer that he would have otherwise in the original history to bleed out. And I think that once they're done with that specific aspect of, we need to save this guy for the leap, then we can extrapolate and see, okay, where else are we going with this? Because if he had died, I don't think that they would have thought to say, okay, what happens next vis-a-vis his wife and things like that.
Well, I do agree with what you're saying there, Chris, but also, let's say that the wife had lived. Don't you think it would have calmed him down more for Addison to have gotten the information, oh, she's alive, she's being taken care of now, so that Ben could pass that on to him and calm him down that way? I mean, I know it would be harder with the actual information that they had, but that she did die. But I also think that by having that information, there's a chance they might have been able to calm him easier.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess maybe that just might be a circumstance of where the story eventually went.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to put Ben in the position of being a liar.
Yeah.
So I could see your point of view, Hayden, but I think that then you write yourself into a corner a little bit.
Yeah. And speaking of being written into corners, I think that Alexandra's going to have a lot of explaining to do by the time she gets back, don't you think? And she's committed a lot of ethical problems. She's not supposed to reveal patients' medical conditions, and he did reveal that to the daughter. Sorry, I've forgotten her name again. Sandra, wasn't it?
Sandra, yeah.
And got to explain how, all these hunches that he had seemed to pan out, and they have to explain why they're not going with the relaxatrin or whatever the hell it was, when really they didn't have any evidence at that stage that it was causing problems, because they just stopped the treatments before it could do too much damage. So, I think they left a lot of open-ended questions there that we can speculate on.
If only we could find out what happens to people that were leapt into after Ben leaps out. That would be very cool.
It's a valid question.
Yeah, I think you'd better write another book on that, Chris.
There you go. Yeah, I sense one coming. I'm hoping if this series goes a few more seasons and they start doing tie-ins, I'm looking to pre-order your book, Chris, if you can do one for us.
Are you kidding? I'm going to submit a script. Forget a book.
Oh yeah, there you go. That'll get a 6 for
Definitely.
me already, just with your name on it.
I was just going to say we should come up with the Quantum Leap podcasts episode. We'll all come up with ideas, and someone with writing talent, Chris, can put it all together for us.
I don't take direction. Anyway, moving on.
I enjoyed the episode as it was written. Like that shrapnel scene, the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, Ben doesn't really do much in it. But then I noticed Francois was the way he was acting, his character was like so jerky all over the place, because he's like traumatized of what happened, and he's worried about his wife and freaking out, like moving around. But as soon as Ben starts to calm him down, he really just, and he's talking about his wife and how they met, he really is much more steady. So I think that little bit that Ben did do, it really did help. And I think the reason that they didn't get the timing right, maybe whoever's leaping Ben, God, time, fate, whatever, maybe a new computer system, when something like that happens, like, is it code trauma? I don't even know if that's a real code. It didn't sound familiar to me. But when something like that happens, like you get everybody in, you get them through triage, you get everybody stable, and then you start keeping records. So the timing probably wasn't that accurate. And I think that also added a fun little through line to the whole episode, to where he had premonitions and he knew things. So I think part of that was his interaction with the nurse. Hey, girl, that was pretty cool, because she trusted Ben more because he was already right about those 3 things.
Yeah, I don't know if I had a problem with that aspect of the episode as much as it was a quirky little thing that only Quantum Leap can do. So it's like it's a fun part of the episode. Just don't look too closely at it, right? And it leads into what you were just talking about, Hayden.
Yeah, well, I do like it better though when it is wrapped up properly with the little bow on there. And I mean, I do like us having talking points, but it shouldn't be pointing out, issues that the person who's leaping back is going to have to deal with.
But I think that you can
point
out those issues in every single episode of Quantum Leap, old or new.
Yeah, that's kind of a little bit hand wavy. We don't really talk about that, right? It's the story at hand. Has Ben slept yet? I was thinking about that in this episode, because, doctors don't really sleep much when they're on those long shifts, but I can't remember him sleeping. Is there one that's multi-day that he's slept yet?
No, I mean, The last time we saw him in a multi-day leap, they made a point of him saying that he stayed up all night. He must have drank every cup of coffee in the place to protect the singer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now he's leapt in and he hasn't slept on this. So I think that he's gone 11 straight leaps without sleeping. And he alluded to it once, I think, in Salvation of Bust. And Addison said, yeah, but your hosts have. But I have to think there's some kind of long-term detrimental effect to not having slept for 3 or 4 weeks. Even if you don't feel the physical effects, there's got to be a mental toll that something like that takes.
Would he have slept on the leap where he was helping the kids escape from the school? That went over a few days.
Maybe overnight at the campfire, right? So maybe one night's sleep.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I didn't think of that.
Leaps.
I also think a little bit back to the original series. We aren't really told what's going on between Ben's leaps at the moment, but I like to think that he's in limbo, recuperating a little bit.
Yeah, maybe he gets.
But from the point of view of the project, it seems like all of his leaps are concurrent. There's none of that lag time that they mentioned in the classic series.
Well, they do have to find him though, so we don't know how long that's actually taking.
I wonder. They specifically pointed it out that he hasn't slept and that he doesn't sleep early. I wonder if that's a plot point for something coming up, or not.
I think in a 26 episode environment, that might be an interesting thing that they could do for an episode to address something that's so fundamental. I think in a 14 episode environment that's only 42 minutes per episode, probably not. I don't know, that they have the luxury to explore things like that when you have such a plot driven environment now in TV. I feel like everything's got to be turned to 11 all the time.
And it kind of was. There was a few moments where characters got to breathe and talk, but there was a lot happening.
Ian was missing this episode, which I didn't like.
There was no Ian. What up with that? I mean, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
They did get name dropped.
Okay.
Once.
What was that?
You didn't see them in the control room. Addison just said, "Yeah, Ian says blah 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 blah." Again, it's so quick that if you weren't listening for it, or it's so natural to the dialogue that you don't even think to listen for it. It's like listening to say Ziggy says or whatever. It's just a natural part of the project. So, but their absence was noted. That being said, they had almost nothing back at the project this time. And what they did have was so Janice-centric, Ian wouldn't be a part of that anyway. So,
and that's something that a lot of the fan community was asking for, more Leap, less back at the project. But with that suffers some character time with the cast, and especially Ian, this one, where after I got finished watching the episode, I hadn't really noticed we hadn't seen Ian on my rewatch. So I'm like, where's Ian? And I was like, oh no. I hope they're not going to do less and less, but hopefully they'll be in next week's episode.
Yeah. And we have seen other episodes too where some other members of the crew weren't present for the episode. I think we've had one without Jen. I think we've had at least one without Magic.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's true.
I think it's probably going to just be that it'll depend on what's actually going on in the project story.
And honestly, who's to say there weren't a couple of scenes shot with Ian? Maybe they just got cut for time.
That's very possible because they got to bring it in 42 minutes. So,
if they're on screen, they've got to be paid. So, it might have been a cost-cutting measure as well.
It depends on contracts, I think, too. Because if you're a main cast member, you might get paid for being there, even if not, depending. I want to talk about the 3 separate medical storylines and the different patients. And I also want to talk a little bit about the Janice and Jen situation. But I think first we're going to want to go to our interview with Francois Chau. But Hayden, do we have any bills to pay this week? Do we have a sponsor?
Yeah, well, Respiratrex got in contact with us. They've been trying their best to make their marketing a little bit better after the issues that we've seen in this episode. You know, they help speed along the death process, and in many cases that could be good. So,
Mhm.
so if you know, there's, you know, pesky pre-existing conditions that you want to get rid of, this would be the fastest way to do it.
I like that they repurposed what it does for people, so that's good. Hold on, I have to read this. Side effects may include wearing your underwear upside down during holidays, heart stoppage, and the inability to drive backwards. So just note about that. That is not all the side effects. So you'll have to see their ad in the latest Newsweek. And also, I'm told you have to ask your doctor about it today. Okay, so we did that. But now we're going to go to the interview I did with Francois Chau. You might know him from this episode, of course, but he was also a big part of Lost. And he's Master Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, which is awesome. I got to talk to Master Shredder. And he's also in things like The Expanse, and he's in like one episode of every TV series. It's like that guy that you've seen in everything. So it was great to talk to him. And let's go to that now. Hello and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie, and today with us is Francois Chau. You'll know him as the gentleman that had shrapnel in his head for the first part of the episode paging Dr. Ben's song. So, Francois, thank you so much for being on the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
It's an honor to talk with you. I think I've seen you in almost every show that I've watched over the past how many years. You seem to make it in all of those. When they want someone with like gravitas and a good voice and a good heart, like you're the guy they call, it seems.
I guess if you've watched TV in the last 30 years or so,
yeah.
Sooner or later I'll show up, and I think I'm one of those you're watching and you go, oh yeah, oh that guy, of course, that's the guy. I don't know who he is, but oh yeah, that guy. That's me.
When I was watching Paging Dr. Song, I was like, oh, the guy from Lost. How cool is that?
Yeah.
I'm sure you get that all the time, right?
Yeah. It's been a while, but not as much as I used to. Lost has been off the air for over 10 years now, I think, right?
It has, but I think that was like one of the few shows that everybody everywhere was watching every week. So it was like one of the biggest things. So how did you get into acting and television and film work?
I guess I got interested in high school. I've told this story so many times. I think whoever's watching this is probably going, "Oh my God, there he goes again." But in high school, I went to an all-boys Jesuit high school back on the East Coast, and I think around maybe junior year or maybe even earlier than that, I thought, "Wow, where can I go to meet girls?" So I thought, well, okay, I'll maybe go to one of these sister all-girl schools that are in the area and audition for a show or something, and maybe I can hang out there, which is what I did, and it turned out pretty well. I mean, I started doing shows, and I thought, wow, this is fun. This is pretty good. I think I like doing this. So that's where it started.
Did it work? Did you get any dates? Did you meet any girls?
I did meet some girls, and I think it worked out okay.
I kind of did the same thing, joining like home ec classes and different things, like where are the girls?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Wow,
not as successful though.
Don't, you're dating yourself for your home ec class, man.
Yeah, that was a while ago, wasn't it? Yeah. I guess they don't have that anymore. They probably call it something different. So how did this? Well, let's go a little bit back in your career.
Sure.
Can you tell me about your time on Lost? Because I'm sure Quantum Leap fans probably there's a huge crossover with that show.
What can I say? It was one of it's one of those life-changing things that I was lucky enough to be a part of. you know, it's just like every other actor. A breakdown came out for an audition for a part on Lost, and I went in. I did it, and I got the part, and I thought, oh man, this is great. Here's, you know, Hawaii, here I come. And, you know, of course, the first episode I did, they called up and said, hey, you know, here's your call time, and you're going to, you know, Burbank, Warner Brothers in Burbank. I was like, wait a minute, what? I thought they were shot in Hawaii. They said, yeah, well, you know, this is not this one. So we ended up on the set of the show Alias, which was being shot at the same time.
Yeah, I love that show.
And when they wrapped, we came in and did our little you know, orientation video thing, and that's where it started. And then I think it was supposed to be just a one-shot deal, but lucky for me, it turned out to be more than that. And they kept calling me back. And finally, I think after the third time, they said, okay, here, you know, Hawaii, here you go. So, and from then on, it was, I think maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 times every season, I would hop on a hot plane and head on over there and do my thing.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then, man, I miss those trips.
Do you go to comic book conventions? Do you get a lot of people like coming up to you and want to like talk about like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and cool stuff like that you've done?
Yes, I have been doing some cons, and yes, boy, it still astounds me how Ninja Turtles is still, you know, popular. I would say right now, I would say maybe 75% of the fans that come up to see me at the cons are Ninja Turtle fans. The other parts are, you know, Lost is still there, and there's a lot of I did in the 80s I did a cartoon called G.I. Joe, and a lot of fans from that show are still around.
Who did you play in G.I. Joe? I don't remember, but
my character was called Quick Kick.
Ah,
I was the
very cool.
Yeah,
I'm sure I had the action figure.
Yeah, somewhere. I mean, Quick Kick, the former Hollywood stuntman turned G.I. Joe.
Very cool.
Yeah.
When I went through your IMDb and I was looking down, I was like, wow, he's been in so many cool things. And I looked and I was like, Shredder, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. So I did a quick rewatch, and wow, you can't miss your eyes in that. I mean,
it's one of those things where you, of course, you as an actor, you're grateful for all these jobs you do, and then when you work, you think, oh, this is great. You know, you never think that it's going to be like when I did Lost. You know, you never think it was going to be some kind of, you know, so as big as it was. And the same with Turtles. I mean, it was great fun to do, and then I mean, here we are, like over 30 years later, and I get a lot of like middle-aged guys coming up to me and telling me, "Oh my God, you scared me so much when I was a kid, and you were my favorite Shredder," and da da da. And I was like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah, kids grew up to be adults that are still kids. I think my age group anyway. So we still like all that stuff, and we show it to our own kids. Yeah. So watch it with my daughter. The Expanse. Wow, to be part of that.
I mean, you know, it's like I say, if you watch enough TV in the last 30 years, you'll see me here and there. But I've been very lucky to have been a part of shows that are just, you know, The Expanse was an amazing experience. You know, the cast, the diversity in the cast was something that when I started doing that, I was like, wow, this is great. We've come a ways, but it's just like, oh my God, this is wonderful. You know, at the same time I was doing The Expanse, I did another show called The Tick, where my character and in The Tick and in The Expanse were like, you know, the opposite ends of the spectrum, and it was so much fun to do. You know, you see me in The Expanse, you know, pretty much you want to like punch me in the face if you see me. And in The Tick,
that just means you're doing a great job. That's all.
Yeah. The Tick was the total opposite, so it was great. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. How did you get involved with Quantum Leap? How did you audition, or did they just know you from your extensive work?
You know, every once in a while, one of the, I guess, good things about lasting in this business for so long is that after a while, you know, people remember you. The two producers and writers on Quantum remembered me from something we did together. Oh, wow, man, it was years ago. It was a sci-fi web series, and brain fart. I can't remember the title right now, but that's how I think they remembered me from that show. And every once in a while, it's great when they call you up and say, "Hey, do you want to do this?" As opposed to, you know, you have to audition with everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I presented my self-tape for Quantum Leap, and it turned out okay.
Yeah, you were so amazing in this episode. I mean, a lot of the emotional parts of the episode are involving you and the story with you and your wife and everything like that. What was it like on set and working with the cast and the producers, director?
You know, it was, I would say, there wasn't like anything. I've worked on a lot of different sets, and most of them have been wonderful experiences. This was one of them where everybody, the cast was great. You know, I got to work with one of my friends, Somali, who played my wife a couple of times in things like in past shows. And I have to say, the best part of working on this Quantum Leap is that, and I still kind of get choked up when I think about it, is that, you know, like I say, I've been in this business for a long time, and it really makes my heart sing that I was able to be on a show where the number one on the call list is an Asian American artist, and the show itself, the lead is an Asian American actor, and it doesn't have anything to do with him being an Asian American. You know, in the 80s and 90s, when I used to do all these episodics, where of course every show had its what do you call it, Chinatown episode. Mm-hmm. So that's when we all got to work, and
a lot of work.
You know, I was like, oh my God, well, you know, I've played a lot of you know, drug lords and mm-hmm. so forth through those years, mm-hmm. and to finally get to a point where something like this can happen is amazing to me. You know,
he's such a good lead actor too. I mean,
he's wonderful. He's so, you know, he's like, and I you know, I watched the old show. Mm-hmm. It was a big favorite of mine.
Yeah, me too.
And this came on, and I thought, let's check it out. And it's really well done. It's really, I thought, you know, they kind of kept the old formula, but mm-hmm. they've expanded it. I really like the crew left behind. Yeah, because in the old show you didn't see any of that. It was just
very rarely.
It was just Al and you know, mm-hmm. Sam and whatever. But this is really, you know, it's like, hey, all right, this is great, this is good. Yeah, I hope they, you know, I was telling when I finished and I was leaving, I think I said to, I forget who I said it to, but I said, hey, boy, I hope Ben doesn't, you know, get to leap home for another 10 seasons at least.
That would be amazing. They got their season 2, so they've been picked up, so we're excited about that.
That's great, yeah.
I wanted to ask you a silly question. I noticed you had shrapnel sticking out of your head in this episode. What was the makeup process like for that?
It was pretty fun. I mean, it was like, you know, I'm trying to think of what, we came in and we started, you know, the makeup person started had a whole bunch of different things that they thought, oh, here, let's put this on and see how it looks like. And so some of it didn't look like maybe a little bit too much. Some of it was a little not enough. And we finally figured out, hey, that looks enough for somebody to go, oh, wait, what is that? kind of thing. But yeah, no, it didn't take as long as I thought it would. I mean, I've been in shows where I've sat in the chair for, hours to just get ready. And this was a lot better.
It was quite a reveal in the episode because you don't quite see, you don't see it for the first minute of the scene.
Right.
So the character of Ben's not really worried about you until the doctor attending to you like steps out of the way a little bit. It's like, oh,
yeah,
it's like, oh, I wasn't prepared for that. It looked pretty gnarly.
Yeah,
pretty gnarly.
And the fact that it wasn't like I was writhing in pain kind of thing. It was just like, oh, there's a guy sitting there and he's got this shrapnel sticking out of his head, and this is, yeah.
Which, from my understanding, is that's how it would probably most likely be in a lot of cases. So, like, more people around you worried than the person themselves. Yeah. Like I mentioned before, so many of the emotional parts of this episode had to do with your story and the story of your character's wife, and the part of the episode that I actually cried in was when the character Ben was telling your character about your character's wife being brain dead, and just seeing you cry in that pain.
Right.
As an actor, you probably don't often get as much as you would like to act like you can, but what was it? Take me through that process of that day and shooting that scene of you having to just express that emotion, and you did it so well.
Well, thank you. It's one of those, it's a trap, because, you read the script and you read the scene and you go, oh my God, I gotta be, emotional maybe, or, oh my God, I've got to cry. And, as the scene approaches, as the time approaches for us to shoot it, you're thinking, okay, what can I do? I don't want to, I gotta get it. I can't fake cry or anything. I gotta get this. So, of course, as soon as I say, oh, I have to cry, it's not going to happen. You can't do it. It's taken me, I guess, years to get enough experience in terms of how to approach it. And it seems so simple, but one of the hardest things, at least for me, is to, as an actor, is to relax and not edit myself and just let it go. And if it happens, then it's going to happen. You just have to try to, whatever it is, it has to be truthful. You can't go, oh, I'm going to act like I'm sad. I'm going to act like I'm, whatever. So, I was lucky enough to be on a set that there's not no pressure of going, if I mess this up or whatever, is this going to be bad or whatever. It was just, hey, everybody was nice and relaxed, and when that happens, it's a lot easier. So yeah, it was something that I got to do that I usually don't get the chance to do in a lot of roles I play, where I'm like, again, like the bad guy, and all I do is order people around to go kill people and stuff like that.
You do that well too, though. So I guess it's good to have a big skill set. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was, I know, like television, a lot of times they're rushed for time. Do you have time to work with Raymond Lee a little bit before scenes like that to kind of like figure out how you're going to do it? Or I'm guessing not much rehearsal, if any, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, for TV, there really isn't time. I mean, the director has whatever time of the day, how many shots that she has to get, and there's no time really to, when they say, okay, they call you to set to rehearse. The rehearsal is basically, for the technical stuff, for the camera, for the lighting, and pretty much. My experience on TV is that the actors are sort of left, on their own to do whatever whatever they have to do to get to the point where, you know, when we start shooting, it's all there. So yeah, I mean, that's, you know, there's very talented people out there who have been doing this for a while, and you get to a point where, you know, you don't need to rehearse it. Like, I mean, I used to do a lot of theater, and of course the luxury of that is, you know, you get what, 3.5 weeks of rehearsal every day, and you come in and you work on the scenes, you work on the play, you work on, you know, all this stuff. Well, you don't get that with the TV stuff. So you bring all that with you, and you step on set, and you better be ready, you know. Yeah. So yeah, you know, I think the best way to describe it is the experience. The longer you do this, the more the easier, but just the more used to it you are, and it's not like a great big thing every time you have to try to do it. You know you can do it. You know, the other actors who are professionals, we're all there for the same thing, and we all kind of depend on each other. And you know, for the most part, it all works out.
That's awesome. So another silly question: was it on a set or like in one of those old hospitals that are just used for like filming hospital dramas or something?
Yeah, this was on one of the old abandoned hospitals. I think this one was in, where were we? Hawthorne. You know, I got the call sheet, and of course, a lot of the stuff is shot at the Universal, which is close to where I live. And I thought, hey, this, you know, hospital set, they must have sets there. It's going to be great. And then I got the sheet and it said Hawthorne. I thought, oh man. But hey, that's the way it goes.
Was it an overall positive set?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I say, it was very, very positive. You know, I admit I have been on sets where, man, as soon as you get there, you can feel the tension of somebody's is, you know, it's just not fun to be around. Right. So you just kind of, you know, put your head down and go do about your work. This was one of the sets where it was very, very open and relaxed, and which is very conducive to you know, getting your work done. I think what helped me a lot in all these scenes where it's very emotional, where it's hard to, you know, I mean, of course you have to do you know, it's not just one take. It's you know, 3 or 4 or whatever, and you kind of have to make each one sort of like as new as possible, right? So on this set, like I say, it was very, very welcoming, and when there's no tension, it's much easier to work, and to you know, to do what you have to do.
We've heard different stories from people how Raymond and the gang like to have fun on set. Is there any fun things that happened while you were there?
Let's see. I'm trying to remember. I guess it might have been with shooting some of the other stuff, but for for our stuff, it wasn't really, you know, I'm not one of those, I mean, I've been on sets where it amazes me how some of these series stars or whatever, very, very experienced actors, they can be joking and laughing around with the crew and doing that, and then turn on a dime, and when they say action, they just do what they have to do. I'm unfortunately not one of those people. I think I can't do that. So I mean, I'm not actually I'm not a method where I have to be in you know, go through this whole thing all the time I'm on set. But I like to just, you know, prepare for what's coming up, And unfortunately, or fortunately, the scenes are very, very emotional and hard to do. So I couldn't just, be joking around and then all of a sudden go, oh my God, I got to go do this, oh, they're calling me. God, I got to go, and kind of switch that switch in my head at this time. So I mean, it sounds kind of corny, but what's fun for me is really doing the work. I go on when I do work on location and stuff. I get a chance to go to different cities, different countries, and my wife and my friends always say, "Yeah, you got to go out and you got these days off. Oh, great, you can go and do this and that and have fun and that." And I'm always like, well, you know what? It'd be much better for me if I could just go to set and work like almost every day. That would be fun for me. I might go back to my hotel room and, chill out for a while, but I don't really, I have much more fun going on set. I love being on set, even when I have to sit around and wait for hours. There's a whole atmosphere. You see people doing their jobs, people walking around, people, you're there, you're in the midst of it all. And, it's great. It's a great feeling.
Well, that's why you get into it in the first place, right? Being in the movies and, experiencing all that.
Yeah. Well, if you're lucky enough to be able to do something that you love to do, and make a living at it, man, that's it. Everything else is pretty much gravy, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm. The scenes towards the end of the episode, where your character is seeing his wife brain dead, and you have to emote and kiss her on the forehead, and the shots are from all different like angles and different things. Is it hard to like repeat that performance like again and again?
Yeah, I guess it's weird. Sometimes it is, and then sometimes it comes easily. It's just it's a way of making sure that every time we do a take, every angle or whatever, that you don't get into that comfortable feeling of, kind of almost going on autopilot kind of thing. You've done it and you think, oh, okay, this is a different scene. We've done this, but let's just, that's a very easy trap to fall into. And I have to admit, I have to work very hard not to fall into it. So I try to make sure that every time we do a take, it's like the first time. And sometimes you succeed and sometimes you don't.
You succeeded. The episode came out really well. I was really blown away by it and very emotional. Did you get a chance to get to know the woman who played your character's wife? No. Again, that's one of those things where the woman who played my wife was, I believe, a background artist, because she didn't have that much to do, and I don't think she had any dialogue. So, and again, it's not like we have enough time to say, "Hey, nice to meet you." And I mean, basically, I said that as I came onto the set to rehearse the scene, and she's already all hooked up in the thing and lying there, and I'm like, "Oh my God, are you comfortable?" "Hi, I'm Francois. Nice to work with you," and that's about it. A lot of times, that's about as much time as you have. Like I say, I love being on set, and sometimes in between, when they're lighting or they're doing this and that, there's a little time where you can. But then, you kind of, I don't want to get in the way, so I have to kind of choose when I can hang out and see what's what, or when I can't. So for this one, I don't think there was a lot of people involved,
And it felt a little, if I just standing there trying to not get in the way, it wouldn't work out.
Being a fan of Quantum Leap, the original series, are you excited to watch your episode when it airs?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. What's great these days is in the old days where I used to have to, hook up that VCR to record your show, your episode, or you got to make sure you set the timing right. And a lot of times you mess up, and that was it. That was your shot. You'd have to wait until, maybe the summer for the rerun. But here we are in the 21st century, and there's very little chance, my DVR is set to tape it, but at the same time, you can go to Peacock and it's streaming there the next day, right? The day afterwards, usually. And there's you can, a lot of places you can just say, hey, can you do an air check for me on this? And it's there for you, So yeah, no, I'm excited to see how it turned out.
Yeah, so far it's one of the best episodes I think of the season. So, and you were a big part of that.
Good.
So, we appreciate you coming on and talking to us about it, and we learned a lot. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope I didn't bore you too much with all my blabbing here, but
not at all.
Sometimes you start talking, and sometimes right in the middle of your sentence you're thinking, I think I've said enough. I'm not sure how to I'm not sure how to stop, but I guess I better stop now.
I enjoyed our time together.
Thank you, Albie.
And we're back. How cool is Francois? It's that guy. It's the guy from Lost. It's the guy from everything. And Shredder, those eyes. Yeah,
he was in The Tick.
Yeah, he was in The Tick. He spoke shortly about that, but I had never watched The Tick, so I didn't really have a good conversation to go with it. It's on my list, but I just haven't gotten there yet. Did you watch The Tick, Chris?
Yeah, he had a great part in that. Yeah, I did. I watched both seasons, and he played this quirky, funny role as a stepfather with a secret. And he was like out to lunch for most of it, and he was just so interesting to watch on camera. And then they had this reveal sort of at the end of season 1, and I mean, he just nailed it. And I've seen Francois in so many things, not realizing I've seen him in so many things. I watched Lost religiously, so I'm positive I saw him in Lost and loved him in Lost. So I'm just so happy that we got to speak to him on the podcast and that he showed up in this new iteration of QL.
Yeah. And it's great what he was saying about actually feeling like, the times are changing, that people like him will be lead characters after, experiencing so long where, just somebody who wasn't white would generally not be considered as a lead character material. It's great seeing the diverse cast having these great effects.
Yeah. It's great having Raymond Lee as the lead on a primetime network show, and it's not because of his ethnicity or what he looks like, other than he's gorgeous, of course.
Dreamy, one might say.
Dreamy. He's got those dreamy eyes.
Discrimination against ugly people.
Yeah, well, I think
I'm going
that's
to need to start a protest here.
I think when the next generation is our age, they'll have ugly people on TV finally. So I missed my window. But that's okay.
Like they used to in the 70s. Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Let's just say that Walter Matthau was a major motion picture star.
Good point. He was not a good looking man, but he was a great actor. So I guess if you got the talent, it doesn't really matter. I want to talk a little bit about the 3 different medical storylines. It might be more when you actually examine it. But what did you think of each story? Chris, we'll start with the heart transplant and the drug that the hospital was trying to push, and especially the one doctor, Dr. Harper, trying to push it, played by Eugene Bird. What do you think of like the drug companies trying to push things on people? Like Addison said, they didn't really know at the time the side effects and everything really, but they might. But Christopher, do you have any opinions on like medicines and prescriptions and drug companies and stuff like that?
That to me was the most cliched part of the episode. In an episode that was threatened to just collapse under the weight of its own cliches. You're putting profit above patience. And we made a little joke about it on the main podcast, but that was just one of the many cliche boxes that I think they needed to tick in medical drama. To me, it was just kind of what I expected, and maybe the worst of what I expected when I saw that they were going to do a medical drama.
Well, it's funny. It seems to be an American thing, really. I don't think we experience any big pharma taking over everything in Australia, and we actually have universal healthcare over here, and it does seem, and a pharmaceutical benefits scheme, where it seems like the best stuff is on the scheme in order to make it affordable for everyone who needs it, and everyone seems to have the best option to stay healthy. So this profits before people is, at least from my point of view, very much an American thing. I don't think that an Australian medical drama would go down that sort of path. So it's interesting for me to see, just because it's so different from what I would be expecting. But having said that, I also do watch a lot of American TV, and you are right, Chris, they do seem to have this pop up, not just in medical dramas, but just about any American TV show somewhere along the way. Yeah, let's just say America needs to fix their healthcare system.
Big time. I know I have to spend a couple $100 a month just to stay alive, so I understand that. And it's a big pharma is a thing here. When I go to a doctor's appointment, I'm sitting in the waiting room for 30 minutes. You see 3 people with rolly suitcases in and out. So that's happening all day, every day, where they're leaving samples and, theater tickets and gift cards for the doctors to prescribe their medicine and stuff. It's all a big racket. And I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, but hopefully one day. I was hoping a little bit that they would use the time travel to more of an effect like in, say, Genesis, where Sam had future knowledge of medicine that the current medicine technology didn't really have. But that didn't really come up in this as much. They did know in the future that this was a bad drug and not to use it, but nothing that we know now that they didn't know then. Of course, it wasn't that long ago, but still, I was looking for something like that, and it didn't really happen.
And I mean, I don't think that there would have really been any other options that they could use apart from the other drugs they already knew about. So I don't know how they could use the alternative treatment. After Ben changed the prescription, did Harper change it back? And is that why she ended up having the heart problems?
I believe so, yes. That's what was implied, right?
Right.
At the end of this episode, Harper is kind of looked upon as a good character because he was able to be convinced and change his mind. And everybody's nodding at each other and smiling. But he's the one that caused this girl to need a heart transplant by not listening to them in the first place about the prescription drug and forcing it on the girl.
Yeah. But is that really... There's a difference between responsibility and fault, if you know what I mean. Yes, he would be responsible for it, but ultimately, if he really did believe in this drug and the research that had come out that it was safe, at least at the time, then would you really, make him out to be a bad character as opposed to him trying to do his best to save the patient with what he thinks is the best way to do it?
That's true. And they did add in the line about how she was female, so she was less likely to have whatever the pre-existing condition was. So I'm sure as a character, he really did think he was doing the right thing, possibly.
And really, there's no reason why he should believe Ben / was it Alexandra? Can't remember. But there's really no reason why he should believe them because none of those pre-existing conditions had been diagnosed, and none there hadn't really been any symptoms of them show up until after the drug had been administered.
I feel like they tried to walk a line there. I don't know how successful they were. They tried to make him the heavy in the episode to give themselves some drama, but at the end they pulled it back and almost made him like a victim of the system. a victim of the circumstance that he was put in, because what choice do I have? You don't know the politics of running a hospital. You don't deal with the board. I do. Medical drama. So it's just, to me, that was just more chance to pile on some cliche.
Mm-hmm. I don't mind the cliche. I really don't. And it's a one-off medical show. So I was eating it up. I had my popcorn. I was enjoying it.
Yeah. And it's realistic as well.
The one thing I thought about while watching this is very rarely do I watch live television, but when I do, probably 90% of the commercials are for prescription drugs that you should ask your doctor about, that cure things that aren't really that troublesome. Do you have restless leg syndrome? Ask your doctor. May cause death. Makes no sense. Serenity and I always laugh when they say may cause death, may cause heart stoppage, because that's not a side effect. That's called poison. You shouldn't be taking stuff that kills you, So every time they say death and they have like sunflowers and people walking along the beach and they just mention death, like in the background, we always laugh, because how can you advertise poison and want people to pay for it? That I never understood. So how is the advertising for this episode gonna go? I think because they're basically taking a shot at the people that are paying their bills.
You just reminded me, about 10 minutes before we got online, I actually saw an ad on TV for Quantum Leap starting in Australia. It'll be on Channel 7. Yeah, it'll be on Channel 7. So for any Aussies who want to know where you can watch it, it'll be on Channel 7, which is one of our free-to-air channels, and most likely on the catch-up channels that they have as well. So yeah, everyone will be able to see it soon.
So you'll be a little bit of a Nostradamus over there, knowing what happens a few months ahead of time.
I guess so.
What about Sandra's dad? I think they added the part of Sandra being a divorced parent, so she had a different surname, so we wouldn't be tipped off too soon about Eli Jackson being her dad. And what did you think of the father-daughter storyline? And he was a lawyer, kind of worked out, but what do you think of that with the brain tumor and all that stuff?
I don't want to keep beating the same drum, but cliche. I mean, it turns out to be a long lost relative, and we're estranged, and then you get to have the whole monologue about I went into medicine because of the way he hurt me when I was growing up, and I vowed I would never let anybody be hurt the way he hurt people. And I thought that might have been the weakest part of the episode, were it not for the performances of Tiffany Smith and Stan Shaw, who played Eli Jackson. I thought that they were both so good that they sort of did the best they could to rise above just the baseline melodrama that they were handed. Especially Stan Shaw. I think that he did an exceptional job with what he have, like 2 scenes that he was given. So that helped me go a long way again towards overlooking the stuff that I didn't like. And once again, a lot of that came through on the second viewing, once I realized that all that nonsense was there and I could just gloss over it.
Yeah. It kind of seemed like his story didn't go very far, because they were starting to talk about trying to get him involved with his expertise as a lawyer in trying to go against the hospital and trying to get this drug taken off the market. We didn't actually hear any kind of conclusion to that, apart from the fact that it does eventually go off the market. I would have liked to have seen, him in action or some way along there, even if it was just preparing some sort of deposition and showing it to his daughter or something along those lines, or if he was the one who convinces her to, stand up to the higher up people in the hospital. Just something really to make it feel like his story was going somewhere. I think they were trying to focus too heavy on the family drama and, oh no, he's dying and he's refusing treatment and we've got to try and make sure that he goes straight to oncology from here and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, no, show me his lawyer techniques if you're going to set up that storyline.
I think that that ultimately is unimportant, because Ben's mission was to get them to reconcile. and he did that. So you don't really need to see it play out. However it plays out, they're now talking again, and she's now concerned again. And now, there seems to be some kind of pathway for them to have a relationship. However it plays out, Ben did what he had to do, and we don't need to see him, bringing some kind of charges against the hospital. I mean, who's to say that he even needs to do it at this point, because they decided not to use it in the end. So it's a moot consideration, maybe.
Well, that's kind of the micro mission, reconcile the family. But there was the bigger macro issue, which was trying to get the drug off the market, because he ultimately needed to save all the other victims who were going to be affected by this drug later down the track. So I do agree with you that it didn't really hurt things, because we do know the overall outcome. I'm just saying I would have liked to have seen it, because it is still somewhat relevant.
I don't think I was missing it as much viewing it, but it would have been nice for in Addison's wrap up, like she does at the end of each episode, what Ben affected and what does turn out, is like saying if maybe Eli was instrumental in getting the drug taken off the market or something. That would have been a little nice, tie everything in a bow for me. I am going to disagree with you, Christopher. I hardly ever disagree with Christopher DeFilippis. I really did enjoy I really did enjoy the writing in this episode. And as somebody who watches medical dramas here and there, I watched St. Elsewhere as a kid. And I watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy until the shooting episode where everybody gets shot and killed, basically. Spoilers, I guess, but it's a long time ago. But after that episode, I was like, I checked out. I didn't want to watch it anymore. But I really enjoy the procedural medical drama that it's basically the same every episode. And just the mystery is different. Maybe House is another good example. So I think what they were going for was an episode of ER medical drama. And if they didn't include those cliches, people like me that enjoy those type of shows, I don't think would enjoy the episode as much and wouldn't stick around maybe for future episodes. So I think the cliches that you're speaking of may be in there on purpose just to make it as medical drama-y as possible. And I enjoyed it. So
I completely agree with you there. I think that they did it to grab as much of a mass audience as possible. They're coming back from hiatus. Hey, if you like New Amsterdam, look at this episode of Quantum Leap this week. But is that sort of a bait and switch? Because it's not going to be that every week. And I have the same problem with medical dramas. You just named it, procedural. I don't like cop dramas because of that these days. It's just not my thing. I'm not saying they did it poorly. I'm just saying I see all of the gears turning and I know exactly what it is that they're doing, and it's not something I enjoy. So I'm more prone to be critical of something like that because it just smacks to me of formulaic.
Okay. Not your thing. I enjoy it. I enjoyed it. It's like the football episode for me. I didn't enjoy that in the original series just because I have a problem with football. So there we go.
Yeah, but All Americans had some really great radios in it. So,
oh, there you go. No radios in this episode. I was really looking for one in the background. So the only thing that I saw that might have been anachronistic was the security camera in the ceiling. That was on my fifth watch. I'm not sure. I don't know the history of them, but I don't remember them looking like that back then. But I could be totally wrong. I'm not an expert in that.
It was nice hearing Ben say, "Oh, pages. That takes me back."
I'm still an optical media guy, so it was when they were showing the computer in that like ugly tan cream computer puke color. I was like, oh, I like it because I like retro tech stuff, so I was enjoying that. And
I wish we had high speed internet because they would have had only dial up, and probably not very many households or businesses would have even had it at that stage. Because what was it, 1994?
Yeah, and it was just starting around that time. I didn't really get online until maybe 98. I'm thinking
Yeah, no, they had dial-up modems as very early, but it was very specialized. 1994 is when I had my first job, and that's when AOL sent out so many little floppy disks that you could tile your bathroom with them. So it
I
really was the very beginning of the dial-up revolution.
I one year I decorated my Christmas tree with all the AOL CDs they gave me that year. So that's all that was the decoration.
Yeah.
So there was that many.
Yeah, but it did feel a bit like a missed opportunity as well, because like I was saying before, Ziggy felt underutilized or not as useful as she could have been. Why didn't Ben just say, all right, Addison, we need this information. Get Ziggy to look it up. The internet's too slow here.
I'm beginning to become disappointed in the lack of Ziggy. I the first part of this season, I was thinking, well, they're waiting for the reveal and, Deborah's voice talking as Ziggy, something. But we're not getting any Ziggy at all. And she's right there every day on set, pretty much. And I feel that we need Ziggy, just because we did hear Ziggy when they went back to the project in the original series. Why? And we're back at the project in every episode. Why do you think they're holding on and waiting for the big reveal of Ziggy talking, or are we just not going to get Ziggy ever?
I'm despairing that we probably won't, because they want to go their own way with this series. But if there were an opportunity in this episode, I was a little bit like when they were interrogating Janice, and she said, "There's one other person I'll talk to," and because first she has to talk to Ben. And when she said there's one, I really thought that we were going to see her in the control room waking Ziggy up. The fanboy in me wanted that so badly.
Chills. I totally would have popped for that big time. I would have loved that.
Well, my theory is that we might end up seeing Ziggy be the big bad of the whole series. Because ultimately, Janice and Ben are making it clear that the project can't be trusted, and who runs the whole project?
I'm still on the Addison is the big bad of this season. I think it's going to be revealed to be Addison, but I have to admit, in this episode, I did not see any clues like I have been seeing.
No,
Addison's.
I thought I actually am a little bit more on your belief, Albie, after this episode, because literally Addison was the only one that Janice would talk to, and it was because she says, you got to keep your mouth shut, and you got to tell Ben to keep his mouth shut, because nobody here can be trusted, especially not you. So I don't think she obviously didn't say it in those sort of words, but that's the effect,
I absolutely love this scene between Janice and Jen in this episode. With Magic earlier, and they were like good cop, drunk cop. I thought that was funny. The pouring of the tequila, and how Jen was pouring it, like almost filled it to the top each time, trying to get her more drunk. And I think Georgina played it really well, because there was a line in there that was kind of slurred, which I think anyone after 3 shots of tequila might slur their words a little bit. But I really just enjoyed that back and forth. I did notice one little continuity error. I don't know if you guys saw it, but
no, what was it?
Scene, well, they were very specific with these shot glasses that had like a line on the top rim of, what a shot is basically. And Jen was overfilling it, going past the line up to the top. And they had a really close up shot of that. And then in the next shot is more of a wide shot. But you see the same shot glasses, but they were only filled up to about where the line is and not all the way to the top. And if it wasn't a cut from like the shot glass to the same shot glass, just at a different angle, I don't think I would have noticed it, because my brain went immediately shot glass. But other than that, the dialogue and the content was good. What do you think of Janice? She said orders. There's an order, right? She said, but there's an order, because she let that slip out because of drunk cop. Drunk cop is effective, apparently.
Yeah. That to me didn't say like someone is under orders. What I think she means is there's a specific sequence of events that
Oh,
either should have taken place or that need to take place. And we discussed this a little bit on the main podcast, but I feel like she is surprised in that moment because maybe now that Ben has leapt to circumvent whatever it is they're trying to circumvent, maybe the history that she knew is suddenly in flux. So the fact that things are happening out of sequence from her point of view is a shock to her. I don't know what those things are. None of us do. But that's how I read that line. There's an order to, oh, wait, I can't say anything out loud because it'll trickle up time to Martinez.
I thought that was such a great line to have because it did make me think, has Leaper X leapt into the listening to their conversation, listening to everything going on in the project somewhere, and is his hologram there listening to someone?
Yeah,
that's the thought that I immediately got.
The order to things that completely went over my head. It being basically a military operation, kind of, because it's run by the government. And Addison, they mentioned, is a captain in this episode. I was thinking military order. I wasn't even thinking of the order of the sequence of things that had to happen for Ben to accomplish his mission. So, wow, that just brings a whole new...
Did anyone else think that maybe Jen had slipped something into the alcohol that she was feeding Janice? I thought that maybe there was some sort of a truth serum in there trying to get her talking.
That would be a little bit of poetic justice in a way. I did think that for a second. Like, with Janice involved, any drinks. And then when Janice was pouring the drink for Jen, I was like, wait, did she slip something in there already again? Is that how she's going to escape? She just keeps giving people drinks?
Yeah.
And they pass
Well,
out.
remember, Jen is the one that will get things done. She's not above blackmailing people. She's not above kidnapping people. She, came up with the strategy, let's just kill Leaper X now so he can't do anything, She's the one that would go there. So I was seriously expecting something like that to happen.
I think we saw a good evolution of Janice in this episode where it shows that she's starting to work with the team and hopefully one day will be part of the team. But I think it took a big step like that, taking the handcuffs off. I think that was like a symbolic of maybe changing Janice from being the perceived enemy to being helpful towards the team in the future.
I really think that in retrospect, when we have the entire season to look at and we know what Janice's reveal is, what her big secret is, that we're going to go back and see all of her actions through different and probably more sympathetic eyes. So I'm hoping that that is something that will give something rare in TV these days. When you have these, quote, mystery box episodes and the whole season is predicated on a mystery box, Allison has said this time and again, the rewatchability goes down way, way down when you know what that mystery is. And it's just frustrating that nobody on the cast knows about it. At least being that we do have to deal with a mystery box here, if we have a player like Janice, who we don't really know her motivations, once we get those motivations, it will be interesting to watch her performances in retrospect, applying all of those things. It's like when I watch the classic series now, I can't help but apply everything I've ever seen, especially Mirror Image, to even episode 1. Because it's just, I see the series as a whole, as, one thing. So I can't wait till we get the benefit of having that one thing when we rewatch the new series.
Janice said something very poignant in this episode. She says, do you really think I wanted to be here? Do you really think that I wanted to be, helping Ben out? I would have much preferred if he'd just been able to trust you all and come to all of you and, have you all sorted out. I had a life before this happened. And yeah, it's stuff that I hadn't really thought of. But yeah, if she's essentially moved on from her dreams of wanting to be part of Quantum Leap, then something really, big must be going on behind the scenes to get her to go along with Ben against everyone, putting herself in, trouble. And Yeah, I just thought that was a very poignant line.
Which brings up the question again of who do you think, now that we're a little bit further along, who do you think is the main reason that Ben can't trust someone at the project? And does Ben even know who he can't trust? And who do you think it is?
I don't know that there's anyone at the project per se. The way I read this is that anything that they say will eventually get out there. She said in a world with a quantum accelerator, there's basically no such thing as a secret. So the only way to keep information safe is to not say a word, because anything that is said, once you have time travel, you can go back and figure out what somebody said or what somebody's going to do. So the only way to protect your whatever scheme you have, whatever plans you have, is to never talk about them, or to talk about them in such ridiculously, I guess, controlled circumstances where it is next to impossible that somebody could figure out where you are, or, eavesdrop on your gig. That's the way I saw it. So I don't know if it's anybody at the project. It could be someone at a future project that they're trying to hedge against.
Yeah,
true.
I still think that Ziggy might be the one that they've got to really keep their eyes on. And look, she's a computer. She's open to hacks. So I think it might not be really Ziggy's AI deciding to go and take over the world or anything. I just think that maybe someone ends up hacking in and, takes over the project in secret and starts doing things that shouldn't be done.
We did get that one scene with Magic talking about how in a different situation that Janice would have been part of the project. So placing some blame upon himself, along with, of course, probably her mother, Beth, for not letting her be involved in the project. So I found that little short scene very interesting.
Yeah, one thing that I would really love to see, and it probably won't happen just, again, because of the time constraints of modern television, but some kind of flashback episodes, whether it's even just sprinkled in over the last few episodes of the season, where we see Ben approaching Janice, where we see why Magic and Beth decided that maybe Janice shouldn't be part of the project. I know they gave it some lip service in, what was it, episode 2, maybe episode 3, I don't remember. But they never really go into it, and I think it would be really great to see where this stuff comes from and just how it all went down, just as, to see the continuity of the original project to the build of this new project. That could be another reason why we haven't seen Ziggy. This is not the same computer. This is a whole new build based on Ben's calculations, based on Sam's work. This is not Sam's work. So it maybe stands to reason that Ziggy might never wake up, so to speak, because it's not the same computer.
I had never considered that. So you think they didn't move Ziggy from the desert to California?
I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I have no clue. Maybe there is a moribund Ziggy somewhere sitting up in her orb somewhere in New Mexico, just waiting to be awakened. That's my other, as you know, my other dream scenario for this series is for them to go back to the moribund project and fire up the giant gummy bear handling control console in the middle of everything and have that orb wake up and hear all the Vangelis whale music. And I think it would be amazing, get the synchrotron guy back and get his guitar. So
I would love that so much. And I think they could work it in for audiences that haven't seen the original, but also put it in there for us to have even a better reaction and more of a reaction to it. I would love that. I really do think, just a little preview for next week, we have coming out the interview that we did with executive producer and showrunner Dean Georgeris. And that interview is coming out next week on an off week. But one thing that was great about that interview is we got to spend a lot of time with Dean, and a lot of time before and after the interview. And we did some talking, and he asked us what we didn't like about the show, our different opinions on different things.
Is he going to take some of our ideas on board?
Maybe. But one thing I didn't get to mention to him was what you were talking about, Chris. I would love to see episodes that maybe take place in the past, like a whole episode. Because there's been other TV shows that have done that. They focus one episode on a certain person. I would love to see, Ian before they were in the project or something, or Jen, or Addison in the military in desert, whatever.
I feel like that might be a possibility for season 2. Now that we have a season 2 and we know that we're being renewed, they might feel more confident to do standalone, deeper dive episodes into each character. I think this was something that Next Gen discovered as their way to stay on the air, right? I'm not a huge Next Gen fan, but from, I think the documentary was Chaos on the Bridge, when they were talking about how chaotic the first 2 seasons of Next Gen were. The saving grace for that program was in season 3, they decided to focus on a character per episode. And so they would have a Geordie episode or a Riker episode or a Troy episode, meanwhile utilizing the ensemble cast around that. So we might get more of that kind of storytelling if we don't have such a mystery box, CSI vibe. They can go anywhere. They really can go anywhere. They can solve this mystery at the end of this season and be done with it. They can just solve this mystery and let it lead to a bigger mystery. I mean, who the hell knows? So, we don't know what's going on in the future. Is it one of the people in the project? If it is, then my God, then there's a whole nother story to tell.
Yeah, we don't even need flashback episodes. That we can also have flash forward episodes where we find out 9 years how everything is, future and perfect. And then the whole time we're watching the rest of the series, we got to figure out if and how they get there, So
I love how you name drop the only Voyager episode I like.
Well, Albie, it sounds like that's a really great interview, but I believe we might have another interview now, don't we?
We did. I'm so excited that I got to do this interview earlier today with Tiffany Smith. You may know her from this episode. She played Dr. Sandra Turk. But I know her also from being in the geek universe. She's worked on Masters of the Universe with Kevin Smith, and she's done a few things with Kevin Smith, done a few things with Greg Grunberg. She was a host on G4. She's done all kinds of really cool stuff. But I was really excited to talk to her a lot about Masters of the Universe, and she's the new Man-at-Arms, if you didn't know, her character, Andra. So we talked about that, and of course we talked about her amazing work in this episode of Quantum Leap and the good time she had. So let's go to that now. Hello and welcome back to the Quantum Leap podcast. I'm Albie, and I'm so excited to have with us the main guest star of the episode, Paging Dr. Song. She played Dr. Sandra Turk, and she's Tiffany Smith. How you doing, Tiffany?
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
May I start off by saying it's an honor to have a man-at-arms with us today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. That was honestly so getting to do Master of the Universe, I've been a fan ever since I was a little kid. So a lot of the jobs that I get to do, because I've been in the geek space for a long time, it's always stuff where I watched it and now I get to do it. And same thing with Quantum Leap. But when I found out that for Master of the Universe, I was going to get to become a Man-at-Arms, I was so excited. And the second question I asked was, am I going to get another action figure?
I just rewatched the Masters of the Universe Aftershow you did last night, because when I was watching this episode, Paige and Dr. Song, I was like, I know her. What do I know her from? So then after the episode, I kind of went on the IMDb and I was like, oh yeah. So I watched again. So what's it like hosting with Kevin Smith, something like that, an Aftershow for Netflix?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about that was, so I've been working in the industry for a while now. I started out doing mostly hosting stuff, like I said, in the kind of geek genre space. And so I've known Kevin for years, and we've done stuff, with DC Comics, and, I used to host for Fandango, so I've interviewed him for films that he was working on and stuff. So getting to work with him on Master of the Universe Revelation, now Revolution, was amazing. It was one of those things where, you audition for a project and you're excited about it because of the property, but then extra excited because, you have friends that are working on it. So getting to do that with Kevin was amazing. It was so much fun having him in the, it was mostly over Zoom because of the fact that we were recording during COVID. But it was awesome getting to see how excited he gets about the recording sessions. And then getting to do the after show was great because we didn't get to spend a ton of time together in person doing the actual recording. So getting to do the after show with him and Rob was amazing and so much fun. And it was great doing that. And then getting to we got to go to Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con this last year and have a panel in Hall H, which Rob was there and Kevin moderated and Dolph Lundgren came, and it was amazing.
Yeah. It doesn't get better than Hall H, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For a geek, it sure doesn't.
Those interviews you did, they seemed very cut down, like the first 30 seconds, last 30 seconds, middle 30 seconds. Were they like longer interviews when you did them? Did you do them live on the set?
We did do longer interviews. We did them live on set. Yeah. But again, like I said, we were doing them via Zoom. So it was a little bit harder because at that time, like it was still pretty, not early in the pandemic, but still trying to figure out like how you could get people on and make sure that the cues and everything matched up and everything timing wise worked. And fortunately it was during the pandemic. So we did get to do stuff over Zoom because we were interviewing people from all over the world. Like, all of our actors were all over the place. And usually when you're trying to get people in person, it's a little bit harder. So getting to do it over Zoom was great.
Is there anything you can tell us about the new season? Have you started any of it yet?
All I can say is that, yes, I've recorded some of season 2. That's all I can say. And that William Shatner is on season 2. Can't tell you anything about his character, but
wow,
yeah,
I didn't hear that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was the big announcement at Comic-Con. He came out at the end of the panel, and I've been a massive Star Trek fan my whole life too. So that's, it's Star Wars. You've got Mark Hamill, and then Star Trek happens when you get William Shatner. So I was very, very, very excited. I think the fans will be excited too. That's
cool. You're a Trekkie. You're a real nerd. You're one of us.
I mean, I have a lightsaber on my wall. I have all my comics up. Yeah, I grew up watching all this kind of genre stuff with my parents, and I think it's definitely not left me, and that's the space that I want to continue to be able to work in.
Is that part of what wanted you to get into the entertainment industry, and how did you start off in that, and acting and hosting and all that stuff?
Yeah. I thought I was going to be an actor early on, and a singer. And then I ended up, my parents both were the first to go to college. And so they were like, you need to go to college and get a degree. And so I went to school for broadcast journalism because I was like, it's entertainment industry, but not entertainment industry. It's like adjacent. And I loved talking to people. I moved a lot growing up. So I feel like interviewing people and getting to know people is something I really, really enjoy. So yeah, went to school for broadcast journalism. I went to Syracuse, and I remember them always asking, because it was very, very heavy into sports and stuff. And I was like, I want to do entertainment. I want to talk about, geeky stuff that I love. And at that time, G4 Attack of the Show was huge. And so that was the ultimate goal for me, was to work for G4. And so after I graduated, I was born in Los Angeles, so I moved back out here a little while after college, and was lucky enough to get to do some stuff on G4. I did Attack of the Show and X-Play, and that kind of opened the door. And I think it was one of those things where, like I said, I grew up reading comic books and playing video games and just loving genre. And I think once I started working in the industry, people really saw that and knew it. And so it just kept opening more doors, where it was like I got to work for Marvel and do red carpets for their movie premieres. And then I hosted a show for DC Comics for a long time. And, working with Kevin. And then kind of from there, it was, I got to be on incredible sets because I worked for Fandango for a while and did kind of all their genre films coverage. And I just remember being on sets and being like, man, I still want to act. I really want to do that. And so I started taking classes again and not really telling anybody, because I'm very much like, I want to crush it when I do something. So started taking classes again. And then once I felt ready, I started kind of telling people that I was going to be auditioning and I wanted to get back into acting, or really focus on acting. And it's been an awesome experience. I ended up doing Jane the Virgin and then Supernatural, and the film happened to be at the right time where I played Meghan Markle in a film. And, it's just been snowballed from there. And, I feel very, very, very lucky and excited to see what's coming next.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was really into G4. I watched it since the old ZDTV days with screensavers and all that stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, I watched some of that stuff, so I enjoyed it.
Nice.
So what's it like being a fan of the genre shows and then getting to actually do Quantum Leap?
I think I let myself like geek out about it when I first book it, and then after that you kind of have to be like, okay, now it's work time. So it's awesome. Like I said, I watched Quantum Leap with my family growing up, and getting to do the show. I auditioned for a couple different episodes, and have some friends who are writers on the show. So when they booked it, it was like, oh my God, we were so excited to begin with. Just that they got to do it. And then the fact that this opportunity came up and I auditioned, and I was actually in New York working at New York Comic-Con, and I got the audition, and I was like, I don't know if I can, like, how I have to record it. Unfortunately, I was staying with a friend who, she's done self-tapes before, so she had equipment and stuff. And, we just threw it all together, and I recorded this audition super fast. And I think it's one of those things sometimes that, as an actor, you get so precious about your auditions and you take so much time sometimes. And those are the ones you don't book. And then when it's like really quick turnaround and you just have to do it and trust that your acting skills are there. It worked out for this one. And I keep telling people, I remember when I was working on set, and I just was like, this cast and crew everyone is so incredibly kind and wonderful and nice. And I just felt really, really lucky to get to be working with all of them. And I mean, the only downer is that you're like, man, this is not a show where you get to come back really because of the time and stuff.
You get to be the main guest star, but unless they leap back to that hospital at that time or somewhere else in your life, it does happen. There's been, like Jimmy, the LaMotta family in the original series, it went back a few times. So you never know.
You never know.
You're the main guest star in this episode, and you really do carry the episode, and your story is amazing. Tell me everything you can remember about being on set and just the whole process of being that main guest star in an episode of Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I mean, I think you audition for projects, and sometimes you get to read a couple of scenes from the episode, but you don't get the whole thing until after you book the job. And so that was what happened here, where I auditioned. I got a couple scenes, and then I was like, I remember being like, I am not a doctor, so is there going to be someone on set that like helps me with that kind of stuff? Because that was my biggest concern. I think when I first went in was that I was like, the acting, I can do that. I know how to do that. But then also adding in, the medical aspect of it. And for a lot of actors, the medical jargon is the hard part. But for me, I think because of hosting for so long, like memorizing stuff comes a little bit easier for me. It's more the like remembering that you have to do certain actions at the same time every time, and making sure that I am doing the correct actions, and, just even chest compressions. Usually you think like the way you're supposed to do them, people like bend their arms, and they don't bend their arms when they're doing it. Arms are straight. So that was my first thing, is that I was like, oh my gosh, is there going to be a medical tech or somebody on set to help me out? And there was, of course, and they were wonderful and so helpful. And I asked so many questions while I was there. And it was great. Like I said, Derek Hughes and Ben Rabb wrote the episode, and I've known them just through, working for DC. They did stuff on The Flash. So we were friends. And so it was amazing getting to be on set and having them there. And talk through the episode and talk through the character. And then Ray and Caitlin are just absolutely delightful humans, like just the nicest people. And we just hit it off really well and easily. And, there was definitely a lot of like singing songs and dancing and talking about nerdy things. And I think that's, for me, every time I go onto a project, I'm like, I want to make sure that, I get to bring joy with me, and that when I leave a set, people feel happier and like they had a better experience, and, that it was awesome and fun. And I just left feeling so like lighthearted and full. And I literally was sad to leave the set on the last day. Usually you're sad as an actor to leave a set because you just love acting, and that's part of it too. But it was just like everybody from, hair, makeup, wardrobe, the director was wonderful, right? Everybody it was just so much fun. It was such a great experience. And I think that's why the show comes across so well, because, you can, even if you're not seeing what's actually happening behind scenes, I think it comes across on the screen.
Is there any? I know TV's very rush. But did you have time to like think of like a backstory for your character that we might not necessarily see on screen, but influenced your acting of the character?
I think with this character, we had her story kind of gives you some of her backstory, where it's like, the interactions with her dad and that sort of stuff going on. That was the part where really I had to spend a little more time for myself, just so that I knew, like, thinking about like what are some of the things that happen between her and her dad, that they are kind of estranged. And there's certain moments where it's like there's not dialogue, but we're having to interact with each other and figure out like what's happening here, how is there a bond that's rekindled. And then with a show like this, it's Ray is leaping into a character that Sandra has a relationship with. So I kind of played with that a little bit, where it was like, what was our friendship before he gets there? And that was, I think it was such a cool thing to see, because I think, you watch the original show and now watching this one, it kind of goes over your head that the lead actor has to play so many different roles, where it's like Ray is playing his character, but then he's also playing, this resident, or another episode he's playing a bounty hunter, and sometimes female and sometimes different ethnicities. And it's awesome to watch him be number one on that show and be such a light and kind and amazing human, and do such a great job with all of the acting as well, because it's definitely a lot to carry. And I think that like that was really cool for me to see too on set.
That's awesome. What was it like working with this director?
Tessa was awesome. She really, it's fun when you get to a set and the director really has a clear idea of exactly what they want. And so it's just very quick and smooth. And she was playful with all of us too. Like when we were singing and dancing and stuff, it was like she would jump in, and I got to take like little videos on set and stuff that hopefully I'll be posting some on social media after the episode airs. But I hadn't worked with her before, and now like I left the set and I was like, I hope that we get to work together again. It's so nice to get to work with new people and just vibe with them so quickly, because I think there is definitely something when you're on a set that the guest stars are constantly changing, and that the director is a different director every episode. You have to make a bond really quickly, and as an actor, feeling comfortable and safe and that you really trust the director is great, because it's some directors will give you a lot of direction, and I love getting direction, and other directors, like Tessa, would come up if she had something specific, but if you did it the way she needed it, it was like, great, okay, we can move on. So when she did come up with notes, it was always really fun for me to kind of be like, okay, I'm going to process that, and then let's play with that. Let's do that. So I think it's one of the things I love about being an actor, is that you do get to work with different directors and kind of feel it out as you go along, because everybody has a different way of doing things. And I think it just brings different things out of you as a performer.
Being friends with the writers, were you let in on anything that might have changed in the script before, when they first wrote it, and in the final shooting of it? Like a lot of times they'll change things last minute.
Not in this one. I'm trying to think. I don't think that there was anything. Nothing changed from when we first started to when we shot stuff scripting wise. It was just, I think working in LA, you have friends and you just want to see people succeed and, see them level up and get to where they really want to be. And so that was the biggest thing for me, is that like sometimes I would just walk off and be like, yeah, like we're working on a set for Quantum Leap together. Like this is awesome. So I think we had a lot more moments of that than any of the script stuff changing that I knew about, at least for this episode.
Okay. Was all of your parts filmed at the abandoned hospital, or what were any of them on the set at Universal?
We shot some stuff at the set at Universal and then the hospital as well. So it was nice because the first day I was on the set, so that was really cool just to kind of get a vibe and, you know, see where everyone was at. And then the rest of the time we were at the hospital, and, you know, it's always really fun when you hear this so much from actors, but where it's like the audition is the hardest part. And then once you get to set, it's so much easier because everything's there for you. Like, we're in a hospital setting and there's extras and there's gurneys and there's people running around, and, you know, you have your stethoscope on and your everything that you need. So getting to be at an actual hospital set was really cool. And just kind of puts you in the headspace a little bit easier than I think it is when you're trying to record at home and a blank wall and, you know, with your cell phone on a tripod.
Acting as a doctor is probably strange enough when you're not a doctor and you don't know the medical stuff, but it's also like a period piece. It's not that far back, but still there's a lot of changes, especially in technology. I noticed in the cell phone you were talking on to your character's ex and stuff like that. Was it funny or strange to just be dealing with that older technology?
It was so funny because there was stuff where I was like, do I have to flip this open and then press something? Do I have to pull the antenna out? Like, what do I need to, what exactly do I have to do? Or it's just like small things like that where, you know, you've seen those old flip phones. But like, I don't know. I didn't use one, so I don't know if I had to pull the antenna out every time, or was it just when you don't have good service? I don't know. So getting to walk around with like a pager and the big flip phones, they did such a great job with the props on this one. And it was so cool because I had never really watched ER. So after I booked it, I like sat down and binge watched the first season of ER. And that gave me a really good vibe for, you know, kind of what headspace we would be in, where it was like, okay, it's kind of like 90s-ish, like hospital drama, like what is that vibe? So that was great to get to watch that and see like what that show even did and how, because that show is so impactful for TV going forward as well, just the way they lit the show and everything. And getting to see George Clooney, like early George Clooney, was really cool too. And just how many people were on that show. So yeah, that was cool. And, you know, I think that is one of those things where it's interesting because it, like you said, it wasn't so far back in time that we had tons of different stuff, but the technology part was definitely fun to play around with and kind of be like, oh wait, do I have my pager on me? Like, what do I do with a pager? I don't even really know.
Yeah, the producer was going for that high energy ER vibe. So the final edit, it does have a lot more high energy like that. So I think it turned out really well.
Yay.
Yay. Did you have to do any ADR for the episode?
The ADR that I had to do was very minimal. I think I was in there for like 15 minutes or something. But it's always fun to get to going because you get to see, you know, maybe even just a tiny bit of the episode, depending how much ADR you have to do. And I always kind of enjoy doing ADR because I think it's like, I almost look at it like a game, like Simon says. Sometimes when you go in to do ADR and if you already know some of this, like, tell me to stop. But I'm like, sometimes ADR is you have to match because the audio didn't come through. And sometimes ADR is they're adding in like a couple of lines here or there, just to help the story go along.
For things to make more sense sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. And so for most of this one for me, I think it was just like throwing in a couple little extra lines so it wasn't having to like match stuff, which that's the part that can take a little bit longer. But I always have fun doing it. It's almost, for me, it feels like Simon Says, or did you ever play that game where it was like the lights lit up and you had to press the buttons at a certain time? Yeah, or playing like Guitar Hero or something. I'm like, that's kind of how it feels when I do ADR, where it's like, can I like hopscotching in to make sure you say the words at the exact right time? And it's weird because it's like you said it originally, but you have to like match it and match the energy.
So how is that different than like recording for Andra?
So voiceover for Andra is incredibly different. Acting wise, the thing that I love about doing voiceover is that like you get to use your whole body in different ways than you do as an actor when you're on camera. I mean, there's certain things where it's like you have to pay, like when I'm doing voiceover, I don't care how my hair looks or my makeup looks or what the lighting is like on my face. It's just like you're just there to sound a certain way. And it's definitely like learning things where, as an actor on camera, you can use your hands to like express and cover your face or be like, oh, like you can't do that when you're doing voiceover. You have to just, because that will block the mic. So there's certain things where it's just action wise, you kind of have to figure out along the way as a voiceover actor, different than being an on-camera actor, or in front of the live action. But I love them both because I think they both just present like different challenges, and you'll still have to go in. It's not exactly the same ADR, but sometimes you go in for animation and you still have to kind of voice match like lip flap matching kind of, where it's like, okay, well, we didn't quite get this or with the energy that we want. So can you say it again, but can you do the energy here? Or same kind of thing. Like, can we throw in a line here? Can we add this here? But that happens less. Like ADR for live action usually is that. But for animation, sometimes you'll just go in and because they don't have the animation done, a lot of it is matching your performance after the fact. So it's cool now because we're, towards the end of season 1, when I was going in to do pickups and stuff, I just remember there would be stuff where Andra would be doing it. And I was like, did you guys like copy what I was doing in the VO booth? Or did you just kind of like, do you know me well enough that now like you're animating her that way? And they were like, it's a little bit of both. So Powerhouse Animation is fantastic at what they do. So it's really cool because I think that show for me is the first time where I got to take a character from, the beginning of a season all the way to the end and watch her grow and get to grow with her. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to getting to do at some point on camera too.
Oh, wow. That would be cool. What was it like being directed by Kevin Smith?
He's great. Like, we had Colette Sunderman was voice directing as well. She was our voice director for the show. So he would be in there and Kevin's energy is just so awesome and he's so supportive. And the thing that I love is like Colette has been in the industry for so long and she's an incredible voice director, and the stuff that she can do where it's like, I haven't been voice acting for a really long time. So efforts and stuff I'm still learning all of that stuff. So the fighting sequences, that sort of thing, or it's like, okay, well, you're going to jump off of this thing and then you hit the ground and then you start running. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So she'll be like, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can copy that. So she's wonderful with that kind of stuff and just getting in there. Kevin is very much like, you'll do a performance and he'll be like, that, yes. Like he just has so much emotion and energy after you do a performance in the way that he hears it, which is really cool. So yeah, it was awesome having both of them help to bring this character to life. And like I said, it's one of those things where, especially in voice acting, because we weren't getting to record together, I couldn't hear what anyone else's performances were. So I really had to trust the directors to kind of guide me along the way and say, okay, this is going to match here, or like, let's try it. Do your lines, but do it these different ways. And even if it felt a little off, like from what I was thinking, they knew what the other actors had done. So to help it fit together a little bit better, which is a big difference than when you're acting, on a show like Quantum Leap, where you're getting to actually work with other actors and see what Ray's doing or hear what Caitlin's doing. Because I'm not ever supposed to actually see Caitlin. That I will say is one of the most interesting things about this show is that like you have to just forget that she's there. Like you can't interact with her when you're filming, which is so weird because, we've become friends now, and I'm like, I'm glad that it was after the fact because I think it would be even harder being on set and just like when she'd walk in, just ignoring her because it literally is, you're having a conversation with a character and she's just supposed to swoop in behind him, and it's like you can't even acknowledge that she's there.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever slip up and like give her a glance or anything, and they had to do another take?
I didn't. I was ready. I was ready for it.
Mm-hmm. That's a good out. If you don't like the take you're doing, you can just ruin it by looking at her, right? So
just look right at her. Yeah.
Yeah. There were so many great actors in this episode. The gentleman who played your father, what was it like working with him?
He was amazing. Like we didn't get to spend too much time together, but he just came in and brought this energy, and it was literally like we sat down and he started telling me stories about his career. And that's, I think it's something that for me, like I said, as a host, I just enjoy talking to people and hearing their stories. So we just chatted, and, he shared stuff about the industry and getting to come and work on this set with us. And so I think that it was one of those things where we, like I said, we didn't have a ton of time together, but because we got to have that time to chat a little bit, I think it helped with, making the bond and having it feel like we had this longer relationship for the show and for our characters. But yeah, I try to go onto every set as if it's my first one, because I think that you can learn so much from everyone who's on a set. And I like to look at people as like, I'm like, you're going to be a mentor to me, whether you're being a mentor to me or not. What can I learn from you? How can I be better from this experience? And with him, it was just like hearing about his experience as an actor, seeing the energy that he brought to set. It was awesome. It was so much fun. Well, I hope that we get to work on something again together soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. I have to ask about the scene with Francois, and he had the shrapnel in his head.
Yeah.
What was that like acting around, makeup that's shrapnel sticking in a guy's head? And like, that's not like a normal scene a lot of people get to do. So what was that like?
Yeah. It like I said before, it was one of those things where I think that a lot of times as actors, you continuity is something that like you have to match every time, where it's like, okay, well, I had to make sure I take the shrapnel out at a certain point. And it took a lot of stuff from direction to trust, okay, so if I don't take it out here, is it like, if I don't actually pull it out, does it still look okay? And trusting that, the DP and everyone has got everything that they need, so it looks as realistic as it possibly can, because obviously I'm not really pulling shrapnel out of his head. But the makeup team did such an amazing job. And it's just always fun when, you get to do, like, one of the first films that I did was a horror film. And it's like, when you get to like add in the blood and do all that kind of stuff, it's always fun. And again, like I said, as an actor, the more realistic it looks, the easier it is for me to perform while I'm doing it, and so I got to definitely take that piece out a couple of times just to make sure we got the shot right. And that was where, again, I was asking our medical people a lot more questions, where it was just like, okay, how would I do this? Like, what would the reaction be? What do we need to do? Who comes in to like make sure he doesn't bleed all over the place? And so that part was definitely a learning curve and just a lot of fun. And I always like a challenge, so I'm like, yes, keep throwing more stuff at me. It really is like choreography when you're doing that sort of stuff on a show like this.
It must be crazy. You go to work that day and you just learn about temporal arteries and different things like that. And
yeah, it's true, and that's, I love learning new things. So much of it is, Google the words anytime a word comes up where I'm like, huh, what's that? Especially medical stuff where, yes, we have somebody on set to talk me through it, but I'm like, I kind of want to have an idea already when I go in to be like, okay, I know what these words mean, but can you talk me through this part? Because I don't really understand it. Obviously, I didn't go to medical school. So what would I need to focus on, or what are the things that I need to do here? And so, yeah, that scene was really fun. And, it's always fun when more actors are on set together. It's always a longer day for filming because you have to get different angles and different shots on everybody. But I think especially coming out of the pandemic, getting to be on set with so many actors and so many great, talented, wonderful actors was amazing, and on top of that ended up the Eugene Bird, who's in the episode as well. He's one of my friends too. And so we both auditioned and we both know the writers, EPs on the show. And we didn't know we'd both booked it until like I went in for my fitting and I was like, Eugene booked it too. So that was really fun. Especially because it's like we actually would hop on Zoom the night before we had scenes and run our lines and stuff together.
Yeah. That would really help. Yeah. Because you don't get a lot of rehearsal in television, if at all. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love rehearsal. So I'm like, anytime someone wants to run lines with me when I'm on a job, I'm like, yes, let's do it as many times as we possibly can.
Do you have any special plans for viewing the episode when it airs?
I usually watch one time by myself and then I'll like watch with other people. So I think probably, it's tomorrow. I don't know how this works since the podcast is airing after the fact. But
yeah. While we're recording it, it's tomorrow night. Yeah.
Yeah.
At 10 p.m. Yeah.
So my plan is to watch and possibly be on social media a little bit while I'm watching. But I definitely usually watch whatever I do the first time by myself, just because I'm a little bit critical and I get a little awkward. I'm like, I don't want to watch myself. And then I'll probably watch with some friends. It's awesome because it's one of those things too, where when you get to do shows that it's more mainstream or on a network that everybody can watch, seeing the support of friends is awesome because, you know, all of my friends are like, where we're going to watch, we're going to be texting you. Do you want to watch with us? And I'm like, I don't know. So
that's awesome. And finally, in the future, when you're looking back at your experience with Quantum Leap, like what's the takeaway you'll keep with you?
I think honestly, the takeaway is, it sounds so cheesy, but like the friendships that I made on set, the ones that I had before and the new friendships that I have now, where I hope that I get to keep working with, you know, people that were on this show. I hope I get to walk onto other sets and see them. And I think it's just a reminder too that, you know, I think it's always, it's not every actor's goal, but like I would love to be on a show where it's a, you know, long running number 1 or number 2 on a show, especially in this genre space. And just seeing, like I said, how kind and welcoming everyone was on this set. That's definitely something that I had in the back of my mind that I always wanted to be like on set, but getting to see it in this circumstance, that's definitely something that I'll take away, where it's like, you know, you can be that way on the set. It can be wonderful. You can be incredibly talented and have a lot of fun. And I think a lot of times when guest stars come in, it is different because it's like you're just on the show for one episode and then you're gone. But them all being so welcoming makes such a huge difference. And I think it, like I said earlier, it comes across on the episode.
Tiffany Smith, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and I hope everybody enjoys the episode.
Albie, Hayden, you're not going to believe this. Ziggy says there is a 100% certainty that was an amazing interview. Yeah. Yep. That's, it's not a lie.
It was fun talking to somebody who, you know, works with Kevin Smith, knows Kevin Smith, and was on Masters of the Universe. I really love that series, and now it's got a second season coming up. So she talked a little bit about the upcoming season, but she really couldn't say much, which is understandable. But her character, if you haven't seen the season, it goes through a really incredible arc. She was amazing in this episode too. I think as a guest star goes, I mean, of course, Raymond and Caitlin are great in every episode, but a guest star can either make or break this episode. And I think she really made this episode. She was just so believable. And every time she was on screen, I was, let's say, enamored. What did you think of
Agreed.
her storyline and performance?
I felt like that if you were going to have another character to center the episode around, she was a great choice because she's versatile and she did great with what they gave her, but she also played off Raymond very well. And I thought that she was one of their stronger guest stars for the season. They've had amazing guest stars this entire season, so I don't know if I should say that, but she was as good as anybody, and I think perfectly cast for this episode. I think this was her episode, and she really carried what they gave her very well.
I felt that she was on par, as good as that gentleman that you spoke to from the Somebody Up There Likes Ben.
Oh yeah, that was John Chafin. John Chafin was also amazing in his episode. It was I had a good time talking to him as well. So yeah, I mean, everybody just getting some really good guest spots. And that's another thing that harkens back to the classic Quantum Leap. You're doing basically a new anthology episode every week. So the series is only as strong as the guest cast that you can get.
I really got the feeling while watching Tiffany that this might be one of those moments where, like, you look back at the original series and you see Jennifer Aniston, you know, before she was Jennifer Aniston pretty much. And I'm thinking Tiffany's going to go places because I just loved her in this episode, and I think that was the main my main thing that I liked about the episode was just her performance.
And I feel like we're, again, just this string of amazing luck that we have. We're so fortunate that we're able to speak to her and to John and to most of the other guest cast. They have been as responsive and as terrific as the main cast when it comes to just, reaching out to the fandom through us, through Fate's Wide Wheel. I mean, everybody just seems to be having a great time and they just want to share it.
Hayden, final thoughts on the episode Paging Dr. Ben.
Yeah, it's good. I didn't think it was brilliant, but it was good. You are exactly right, Chris. It was very, very cliched, but there was some great acting. I enjoyed some of the thought-provoking stuff that Janice was saying at the project. I'm going to give this one 4 Respiratrex pills out of 5.
Okay, not bad. Christopher, your final thoughts on this episode, and also could you tell us a little bit about what you spoke about on the podcast proper for people who haven't checked it out yet about this episode?
Sure, make us look bad.
Yeah, I mean, we touched upon a lot of the same thematic elements, and I feel like this is a whole different conversation, though, necessarily because it's the three of us instead of me, Allison, and Matt. But we did focus somewhat on the plotting and the pacing and what we liked and didn't like, sort of the highlights and the downfalls, of course, because we're 3 very separate people. Some of us liked it more than others. Some of us didn't like it at all, me. And, aside from that, we also had some really good discussions about the interplay and the dynamic between Ben and Addison that we didn't really get into on this one. So there's a much more deeper dive into that on the main feed for the podcast. So check that out. As far as my final thoughts, I'm going to echo or parrot what you might hear if you haven't heard it yet, or what you've already heard me say on the main show. Quantum Leap is wonderful because it can be anything every week. Unfortunately, that's a double-edged sword because some weeks it might be something you don't like at all. In this case, it's a medical procedural that, for me, falls flat. I don't like medical procedurals, but the performances were outstanding, and it's Quantum Leap. Next week, we get Robert friggin' Picardo in a nuclear reactor, so I don't even have to think about this anymore. You know what I mean? So that's the beauty of Quantum Leap as well. If you don't like this one, just wait. There's another one right around the corner. It's like a bus. Another one will be along directly.
I wish they hadn't revealed what was in that military hangar or whatever, because I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but I was getting the feeling that they were going down to Area 51 and it was going to be aliens or something. So I was really like getting excited, like, ooh, this might be cool. There might be like a spaceship floating in this hangar, but it just turns out it's a reactor just in the floor. So I don't know. What did you think about that?
Well, wouldn't it be cool if it's Quantum Leap's nuclear reactor?
That would be cool.
Yeah, they must have one because that's how they power it.
Maybe this is in New Mexico where there was the original project was built around or on where there was a nuclear explosion.
Right. Testing. Right. So,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I hadn't even considered that until this very second because I was just so caught up in the Picardo thing. And I think that that could be a cool way to go. Do I think it's going to be that? No. It's too much to ask. Quite frankly, it's too much to ask, but it would be really neat.
Mm-hmm. We'll have to see where it takes place. So overall, I love the episode. I really enjoyed it. I love the actors. I did love the cliches, if that's what you want to call them. I love the medical procedural of the episode. And of course, we're not going to get it every episode, but I could watch a time travel medical procedural, I think, if it was like this every week, but with different mysteries. Overall, I really liked the episode. I can't really say anything I didn't like about it. I really enjoyed it. I felt like a kid on Christmas morning with my new episode of Quantum Leap, and I really enjoyed it. So last week I gave the episode a 6. This week, which we have a 1 to 5 scale. So I'm going to give it 5 clunky flip phones from the 90s.
Gotcha. I'm going to give it 5 cc's of live, damn you, live. Stat.
Wait, you still gave it a 5?
No, I'm just making up words now.
Well, I don't know.
What are you going to give 5, one that you actually like?
Yeah, no. What do we? What's the scale here? 1 to
5
5.
wacky objects from the episode, or something.
Yeah, so we'll say 2.5. Cliched medical is low. The performances are exemplary, so we'll say 2.5 to 3.
Okay.
CCs of live damn you live.
I enjoyed it, and I think I'm going to enjoy the next episode even more because, of course, Robert Picardo, and it seems like it's going to be a time loop episode. The episode's called Leap, Die, Repeat. So I'm thinking Groundhog Day, time loop episode, and I'm into the time loop episodes of everything and time loop movies. And I think, Chris, you even did a podcast on time loops once, didn't you?
Oh, yes, we did. For the 11/22/63 podcast, we did a whole time loops episode. We talked about Groundhog Day and another book that Skipper wanted us to read. I forget what it was called. I didn't like it that much. But if you're going to go for time loop episodes, yeah. And the guy who wrote it was all bitter about Groundhog's Day because they stole his idea, blah, 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 blah. But time loop episode, all time, Mystery Spot, Supernatural. If you want to watch the best time loop show ever made, that one, and hopefully next week's or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, Quantum Leap.
I enjoyed The Bank, I think it was called, from X-Files, where the bank keeps exploding. And what was the Next Generation episode with the time loop where Beverly keeps dropping her beverage, so they have to reloop time?
So the 3 pips and the 3 cards and the...
Yes. What's that?
And the Enterprise keeps blowing up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another good one is on Charmed. There's an episode where they get a demon who controls time to send out one of his minions to try and kill the charmed ones. And every time that minion fails, he just resets time and sends him again until he figures out how to do it. So that was a good one.
So that'll be in a few weeks. They're taking 2 weeks off, I believe.
Yeah, I think they said it's going to premiere on the 30th.
As if they
January
didn't already
30th.
just have 8 weeks off.
Well, I'm sure it's a lot of work, so they need time to do it. So I'm excited for that, and we'll be back along with that episode because we are the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap Aftershow. And for the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap Aftershow, I'm Albie.
I'm Chris.
And I am your representative from Big Podcast, Hayden McQueedy.
All right. We'll see you next time. Keep leaping.